It's Wednesday morning in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We'll begin this morning with an update on our coverage of the political situation in Rivers State. We understand that members of the Rivers State House of Assembly have now withdrawn the impeachment notice served on Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The 24 lawmakers at the resumed sitting at the Assembly quarters in Port Harcourt said their change of heart was in compliance with the resolution brokered by President Bola Tinubu. In the notice of withdrawal read on the floor of the House, the lawmakers said the decision was made out of respect for Mr. President. They also recalled that they commenced the impeachment proceedings on the 30th of October 2023, less than 24 hours after the House of Assembly complex was attacked and 6 weeks before defecting to the All Progressives Congress.
We will not be proceeding with this course of action following the agreements reached after a reconciliatory meeting convened by His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, on the 18th day of December 2023. We have immense respect for the person and office of the President of our dear country, and do believe that his advice and charge should be respected. We remain committed to our promises to our various constituencies and would continue to render our best to them with God on our side. And please, Mr. Speaker, do convey our gratitude to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, for his fatherly rule and commendable commitment to the unity of this country and enduring peace in Rivers State in particular.
We're following very closely development in Rivers and we'll bring you up to speed as they happen. Our attention, however, this morning is turned to the agency of government in charge of drug policy and control in Nigeria. How has the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency fared in the outgoing year? Recall that the NDLEA chairman recently mentioned that the agency has seized over 7,000 tons of illicit drugs and substances valued at over 800 billion naira in the last 3 years. He also mentioned that they've arrested over 42,000 drug offenders, including 46 barons. I'll be joined by spokesman of the NDLEA shortly, but let's quickly intimate you about some updates from the agency. The NDLEA and the military, we understand, are forging stronger ties to combat drug abuse and trafficking. And while the NDLEA chairman says drug abuse is central to crime, the chief of defense staff warns that substance abuse will not be allowed in the military. Sifonesian has details in this report.
It's a partnership both organizations believe will strengthen their organizations internally and improve security in the country. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and the Defense Headquarters have agreed on a common goal to tackle drug abuse and trafficking.
We've made huge seizures in the last 2 to 3 years, in 2021. We've seized over 7,000 tons of illicit substances, worth about 800 billion. In fact, in one night last year, we seized $300 million worth of cocaine.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Nigeria indicates that 14.3 million people aged between 15 and 64 years abuse drugs. This has increased the number of youths imprisoned in recent years.
Drugs are central to criminalities, especially the terrorism, wanton kidnapping, insurgency. They all rely on drugs before carrying out their nefarious activities.
We know the influence of drugs, what it has done to our youths. A lot of issues on drugs all over the country. That is very, very alarming, and those things have sneaked into so many places. Even members of the armed forces were not excluded. Now we have introduced part of our recruitment process and courses. For people to go for courses, you must take drug tests.
The quest to improve security by tackling the menace of drug abuse and trafficking presents an enormous task for both military and drug law enforcement agency. This is expected to take the fight against drug abuse and trafficking in illicit substances a notch higher in Nigeria. Sifon Asian, TVC News, Abuja.
I'm joined now by spokesperson of the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi. He joins us live from Abuja. Thanks for joining us on the program. The chairman of the agency has been reeling out some interesting figures, including 29,000 plus drug users that have been counseled and rehabilitated in the past 3 years. Precisely what are the agency's numbers in 2023 relative to previous years?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'll tell you that indeed what the agency has tried to do, whether in the past 3 years or just this year alone, is to push and adopt the whole of society approach to the fight against substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking. That is providing a platform for everybody, every stakeholder, every citizen of this country to buy in and take ownership of the fight. That is trying to create a balance, a fair balance between our drug supply reduction, that is where we arrest, where we prosecute, and get people sent to jail to to bear the consequences of their criminal activities, and on the other hand, the drug demand reduction, where we try to ensure that people, their level of awareness is high to the point that people take the appropriate and the right decision in avoiding substance abuse or even getting involved in in illicit drug trafficking. And when in situations where some people are already involved, we also create the platform or the system for them to also get help, to seek help, so that their situation don't really get bad. And so all of these we have been doing, and I can also tell you this has also been intensified in 2023, where in 2023 alone, we've had more than 12,000 arrests in 2023 alone. The figures you rolled out earlier, which the chairman actually gave during the visit of the Chief of Defense Staff some days ago, really had to do with the figures of arrest and seizures and activities of the agency in the last 3 years. But like you asked me, the figures for this year, when it comes to arrest, we had more than 12,000 arrests and seizures, over 1,387,905.37 kilograms of illicit substances have been seized this year alone, with more than 3,000 convictions just this year alone, while our counseling and rehabilitation department have also taken care of about 10,000 drug users, while cannabis plantations destroyed this year alone also goes as high as over 200 hectares. So all of these we have done this year. But if you look at what exactly have read out, that there is a fair balance between our drug supply reduction efforts and our drug demand reduction efforts. Our drug demand reduction effort, we try to drive this through our wider advocacy campaign, where officers and men, whether on their own or in partnership with other stakeholders, go all across the country to schools, to marketplaces, to places of traditional rulers, to communities, to faith-based organizations, the mosques, the churches, to push the message of substance abuse, anti-substance abuse messages, wider messages to them, so as to equip the people with the right knowledge, with the right information for them to avoid substance abuse.
All right, Mr. Babafemi, you've reported over 12,000 arrests this year, if I'm following keenly, and 3,000 plus convictions. Many are concerned about how many of the drug lords have really been convicted in the past year. For the 6 barons were arrested in the past 3 years, Are you concerned about whether or not you are convicting the brain behind the foot soldiers? And are you having issues securing convictions in that regard?
I'll tell you that our conviction rate is 95%, and just this last weekend, we indeed issued a statement on the conviction of one of them, the man who was actually caught producing methamphetamine in his VGC mansion in Lagos, who was arrested last year, and that was last July, and he was prosecuted, and just this year he was convicted, sent to 4 years imprisonment, and we also, after that, we also went after his mansion and his vehicle, which we also got forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria. And that was on the basis of that we issued a statement last weekend to let the public know that indeed all of these people are actually paying for what they have done. And quite a number of others like that also have been going through this. You also, I'm sure if you also been following our activities, especially on our website, on our social media handles, we've also tried to, we've also had quite a lot of some of those cases also ongoing in the courts at the moment. And we're glad, we're hopeful that by the grace of God in the coming weeks, in the coming months, definitely we'll get convictions on all of them, because we're sure that we're very certain of, because of the high rate of the conviction rate we have in our cases, because
right.
we actually, when we arrest people, we arrest them with evidence.
Is there a watch list the agency is working with, or do you have an idea of the numbers of, for instance, drug barons and drug offenders, in order to, better evaluate if these numbers are significant enough to guarantee success?
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing is the agency, as it is constituted as it is today, is intelligence driven. We have we work with a lot of intelligence, either internally generated in Nigeria, within the agency, in partnership with the citizens, in partnership with other security agencies within the country, or even in partnership with our international partners like the USDA, that is Drug Enforcement Administration in the US, or the Border Force in the UK, or the National Crime Agency in the UK. We have partners in India, we have in Brazil, we have in South Africa, we have all over the world. So all of these people, we work in partnership with them. Just about 2 weeks ago, somebody we arrested in Nigeria here, and we're prosecuting at the moment, was actually arrested in Ghana, because the agency, our partners in Ghana, actually saw what we have on him. The intelligence shared with them on the suspect, and eventually they arrested him and transferred him to us. So we're working with all of these people, but we can't really be discussing how many of them we put on watch list, but then definitely for as many that we have intelligence or information on, we do watch out for them. And that's why you see that for anybody coming in into the country with substances, we ensure that they don't have the leeway. We get them arrested, right, and ensure that we seize whatever they are bringing in to destroy our people and the public health in Nigeria.
Let's attempt to explore the rule of engagement of your officers and men. I personally saw your men stopping vehicles at night on my way home some weeks ago, somewhere on the mainland in Lagos, and they were not properly dressed in uniforms. Honestly, I thought they were armed robbers. What's the standard operation for stop and search operations on the roads?
Yeah, depending on the unit or the purpose of the operation, is not something that they do every day, even though it's part of our operations to conduct stop and search on the road, because we've seen these days that people now even move drugs in the engine compartments of their vehicles, even in the tubes or their tire tubes, even in the rims, in other compartments of their vehicles. So drugs are concealed in different in different ways within the compartments of the vehicle. So that's why we have to the way we operate, we try as much as possible to stretch ourselves and ensure that we have physical presence in virtually every, NDLEA is probably one of the agencies in Nigeria today that is everywhere, whether you talk of the border, at the airports, the land borders, the seaports, or you talk of the forest, we're there contending with those who are producing cannabis, or you talk of the highways, we're there contending with those who are moving these things on the highways, or even in the safe havens where people are concealing these substances. We're everywhere, we're in all of these places. So, but then for our operatives, when you see them on the road, indeed, either they're working on intelligence, and if they are acting on intelligence, meaning some of them may not be in, usually the people you see in those places are either in the strike force uniform, that is the black on black uniform, or when you see some of them with the red jackets also, they also, it's also one of the things they use in our operations. And sometimes the brown uniform, again, some of them also do wear all of that. But then we do encourage people that when you come across them, they are out there to work in your interest. Please just cooperate with them. It's not something we do every time, every day. Sometimes, like I said, based on intelligence. Sometimes, again, they do go out like that to just do periodic stop and search.
So this brings us to allegations of highway extortions. I'm sure you've seen some investigative reports on these in the course of the year. I don't have proof based on what I saw that night, but I can tell you for free that these allegations are substantial. You reacted in August by threatening that any official caught collecting bribe will have their employment terminated. Has the agency been able to make examples of these bad eggs in its ranks?
Absolutely. In any human community, it's not impossible. You have some people going outside of the confines of their responsibility or within what they are stipulated, their functions or their duties are supposed to be. And in the case of the NDLEA, I can tell you we have very stringent systems in place to check and to deal with all of those things. First, we have a monitoring task force that is that reports directly to the chairmanship executive of the agency himself, that's General Buba Marwa. We have that in place to investigate any allegation, and we have been very, very committed to this, doing all of this. Anytime there are reports from members of the public on any officer or on any team doing the wrong thing, we ensure we move in swiftly, investigate, and when they are found to have done the right thing, they are appropriately sanctioned and punished. Beyond that, again, we also have, and this, the men of this task force, they are all over the country. They are in all the commands, all the units, all the formations. Even quite a lot of officers don't even know who they are. So, and even they themselves don't even know who is watching over them. So that's how far the chairman actually gone to ensure that everybody is on her toe. That is for that. Then beside the chairman's monitoring task force, we also have the current chairman of the agency. When he came in, one of the first things he also did was to set up the office of the provost marshal for the agency. This is also part of the process to ensure discipline within the rank and file within the officer cadre, and also ensure that anybody who does the wrong thing is also made to face disciplinary measures. And the provost marshal office, even up to this morning, shortly before I came on this program, the provost marshal was right in my office to check on it, to discuss a matter with me. So all of this, we're all working. Everybody is it's very much involved in this to ensure that nobody, but I can tell you that relatively and comparatively, officers and men of the NDLEA have been very, very professional in their conduct, and they have been doing the right thing most of the time. But for a few others who may steer off the line, I can tell you that indeed they are not finding it funny, and it's not possible with the systems in place now. It's not possible that they will also find it funny.
Sounds like you've had official complaints being lodged in this regard, but how can commuters, report such infractions or people who have experienced that themselves?
Yeah, for any most of the complaints we've gotten from the roads are not really about extortion, because we do encourage people, where you talk of extortion, please let's have some shred of evidence to be able to establish the case, because you need evidence to prove such a case.
What is evidence in this case? You mean they have to bring out their phones to record? What do you consider evidence?
Yeah, in this case, for instance, if somebody is asking you, these days nobody carries cash around to pay anybody for anything. Somebody must be able to say, okay, give me this POS to pay into, or give me this bank account to pay into. All of those things, those constitute evidence in this case. And like I was trying to tell you, that indeed most of the complaints we've had to do with people who are probably impatient on the road when they are traveling, or even a lot of people don't also know that the agency has a responsibility to be on the road. They say, oh, we found your men on the road. Are they supposed to be on the road? We do explain to them that indeed they have a responsibility to be there. It's part of their job. They are not on illegal duty. They are right there to do the right thing to protect. What they are doing is also in your own interest, because if drugs move around, you never can tell. You may not be a direct victim, but you could be an indirect victim, because the driver taking you on that trip would have gotten access to some opioids, and taking you on a trip, and he loses his mind. He doesn't have control of his of the wheel, and before you know it, something happens, and that way you also become a victim. So that's why we do encourage people to please try and endure some of these things. Just a few minutes that they will stop your car, search, and I can tell you, I've been on radio programs where people have called in to actually commend what the officers of the agency are doing on the highways, and they've also commended their professionalism. That I can tell you. But indeed, most of the complaints, like I said, border on people's being impatient with them, that they are wasting their time on the highway, or some don't even know that they are also allowed, or they have a responsibility on the highway. So a lot of people don't also know that, and that's why anytime we have the opportunity like this, we do let people know that indeed they have a job to do on the highway, and what they are doing is also in the interest of the complainant.
I remember having a conversation with you on the news earlier this month about an attack on the NDLEA officials in a forest in Edo State. I know your men carry guns, but are they trained to repel heavy gun attacks of this nature, especially when the criminals come prepared?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, if were it not for that, were it not one for their competence, were it not for the fact that they are well armed, were it not for the fact that they are also professional, what you saw in that incident could have been worse. And I can also tell you that indeed that community has actually been pleading and begging the agency, because they know that we will not let that go. We'll definitely stay on, even at that, we'll definitely, the criminals involved in that, they know that indeed they have no hiding place, and they know that they have lost sleep, they have lost their peace, because we will make sure we go after them until every one of them is brought before the law. Indeed, men, I'll tell you, that's why we have the strike force, that's mostly those you see in the black uniform. They actually were trained professionals, trained within the country, trained outside of the country, but our counterparts out there, they are well trained in the UK, in the US, in France, all over the world. These are people that have gone for a lot of training. And even in Nigeria here, the Nigerian Army also has been very supportive. The military has been very supportive in the training of these men. And that's why we are able to go deep into the forest. These are things that were never heard of before, because you dare not go into the forest in the night. Given how ferocious, how deadly these people could be. But now we go in there, by the grace of God, we're getting some support from the government, through which we're able to get some armored vehicles, in which some of these officers moving into the forest in the night. We're praying, we're pleading for more support from the government, and we can tell you that indeed we're going into places. Just imagine in the last couple of months, we've been able to destroy more than 1,000 hectares of cannabis plantations. Nobody dare go into this forest before, but now men are going into those places, destroying those things before they are processed and sent into our communities, where they become difficult and more cumbersome to actually.
But are there times that you seek collaboration with other security agencies, or it is merely a solo operation that involves NDLEA officials?
No, I can tell you that the kind of work we do, we cannot do it alone, whether as an agency. Even it's not what the government of Nigeria alone can do alone, as in all alone. That's why I told you in my earlier remarks that indeed the fight against substance abuse in Nigeria, what our major strategy has been a whole of society approach, getting everybody involved. That was the whole essence of the launch of War Against Drug Abuse, WADA Advocacy Initiative in June 2021. And the whole essence of that is to mobilize every citizen, every stakeholder to buy in and take ownership of this. So indeed, I can tell you that we work with other security agencies, whether you talk of the military.
Mr. Babafemi, I think we lost your audio. You might have to unmute yourself, particularly as we seek to understand the operations of the NDLEA
locally
in the course of the year.
Yeah, so indeed, we can't do it alone. We need everybody.
All right. Let's take a short break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation and also open the phone lines. You can also ask your questions and give your comments on X, formerly Twitter. Use the hashtag this morning. Remember to tag at TVC News and at Nifemi Okuntoye. We'll be back with more after this break.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, how you misinform the public?
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Femi Babafemi is the spokesman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. He joins us live on the program this morning as we explore the operation of the agency in the outgoing year. Quickly, let's touch on that Edo incident. I understand that's not the first time such attack will be taking place in that same area. I think a similar one was reported earlier in the year. What's the current situation now, and what's being done to reinforce your men to avoid a repeat?
Yeah, the hazards, that's part of the hazards of the job. And that's why I explained to you that indeed our men go through training every time. And as I speak with you, there are plans, efforts are ongoing to move a number of them to some other training camps again, just to make them as rugged, as professional as possible, as much as possible, and all of these are going on. But then, you see, because you are going into these places, these difficult, deadly terrains, to deny people of what they have been used to over the years, and so there is that tendency for them to want to resist, and that's why you see in the case of the Edo, the forest in Edo, in January this year, we had a similar confrontation where indeed we succeeded in destroying over 317,000 kilograms of illicit substances right in the warehouses in the forest there. And when our men were coming out, they were ambushed, and indeed, but then we succeeded in repelling that. Again, as you stated, earlier, which we also disclosed in our statement some weeks ago. Indeed, we embarked on the same exercise following credible intelligence that some activities were ongoing in those forests. Again, we succeeded in taking down a number of those warehouses and destroying some of those cannabis plantations. Right. Again, our men were ambushed, but then we had an encounter with them that lasted more than 2 hours. Were it not for the professionalism of our people, it would have been a different thing, but we tried as much as possible, even though we took the heat, but then we tried to prevent innocent lives being lost in that encounter.
You mentioned that one of the officers was shot in the head. What's the update on his health now?
Yeah, by the grace of God, we're glad because the leadership of the agency moved swiftly to ensure that he got the best of medical attention and treatment at that point. And as we speak, he's recuperating and doing well by the grace of God.
This attack, I believe, was at a cannabis warehouse. You're after those planting and those selling. But are you also after those who smoke cannabis?
Yes, mainly, definitely what we try to do is to go to the source of this particular drug, this particular psychoactive substance. Because when you look at cannabis, when you look at the figures of those abusing illicit substances in Nigeria, out of the 14.3 million Nigerians, which I'm talking of based on the 2018 National Drug Survey, out of the 14.3 million Nigerians abused illicit substances the previous year, 10.6 million of them alone abuse cannabis, meaning that it's a major psychoactive substance that we have to look out for. We have to prevent this from going on the streets, from going to our communities.
Help me understand it very quickly, Mr. Bafemi. When you say abuse cannabis, are you saying people who smoke on the street are not abusing it? Is there a quantity?
Abusing, that's what I'm saying. If they smoke cannabis, definitely they're abusing it because it's an illicit substance. It's not something, that's why I said we have 10.6 million as of 2018 or even 2017, meaning that the figure could have changed, and that's even between those within ages of 15 to 64. We know these days that even those under 15 abuse substances, those above 64 abuse substances.
Hold that thought for a minute. Mr. Babafemi, you are going to continue in a minute. Let's take this call from Abdul. Abdul has called in from Abuja. Good morning, Abdul.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Please go ahead with the contribution.
Yeah, my contribution is the officers are doing well. They are trying all their best. They are trying all their best to eradicate drug issues in Nigeria. But the problem is the officers they are treating the officers bad. The NDLEA organization are treating the officers bad. The welfare is so poor. It is so poor. It's very, very poor.
How did you get this information? Are you an NDLEA officer yourself?
No.
So how do you know that they are treated poorly?
From the view of the officers, we interact with them. Hello?
I'm with you, Abdul.
Hello?
I can hear you clearly. Please go ahead. I think we lost that call, but Mr. Babafemi, someone thinks that the welfare of the officers are very poor. Do you agree?
Well, I can tell you that indeed there has been that has been a major challenge in the agency, and that was rapidly taken up by the current leadership of the agency when the chairman came on board in January 2021. I can tell you as that then, even very expensive of over 188 families were not paid. Some are standing for 14 years, thereabout, and he indeed moved in quickly to get the presidency then, the federal government to intervene, and all of that was settled then. And again, there has also been the issue of stagnation of officers on one rank for many years, and even some for more than a decade. All of that also was swiftly resolved with the promotion of more than 3,500 officers at a go. And I can tell you every year now, promotion comes. And I think what Abdul is, I wouldn't know what he's specifically referring to, but I think what the agency, what he probably referring to is the salary package, which again is something that the leadership of the agency has also been taken up with the higher authorities, and we're glad. I mean, the federal government, President Tinubu himself, is well seized of some of these challenges, some of these situations. The leadership and members of the National Assembly, from our interactions with them, also show that they are well seized of some of these challenges, and that's why we cannot deny the fact that yes, we are not where we used to be, but then we may not be exactly where we would love, but then it's a progress, something that is in progress. I mean,
it's a work in progress, and it's good that the agency is aware of what the challenges are. Emmanuel has called in. Good morning, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just want to make it clear that worldwide, the position of cannabis abuse and trading has changed. And Nigeria should not continue to, lag behind when it comes to the issue of cannabis. Cannabis is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And to criminalize its use and cultivation is actually setting the country back. So I would encourage the authority, the NDLEA, to get updated about what's going on around the world regarding cannabis. So there has been a lot of misinformation about what cannabis is all about. And I will say that our current approach to cannabis, trading and use is totally outdated. So instead of, being stagnated in the past, I think we should start looking at the real data about, the worth of cannabis. You can see what's going on in America. Even some of the Muslim countries, they are starting to legalize cannabis. So the bad name that was given to cannabis over the years has to do with the war between tobacco industry and cannabis industry. The tobacco industry won, but it turned out to be that even cannabis will be a lot more safer compared to tobacco. So let's get out of this wood and start embracing what is actually the trend. It's not a crime to cultivate cannabis. You can sell cannabis oil, you can sell the fiber, and you can do a lot. So please, let us stop this, approach. It's not going to help anybody.
All right.
All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for your contribution from Australia. Mr. Babafemi, let's talk about cannabis for a bit. I know that the Ondo State governor had a conversation with the chairman of the NDLEA on the benefits of cannabis, medically and otherwise. So what's the position of the agency as to, the economic benefits?
I think I'd like to, this is very interesting, but then I think I appreciate the contribution from Emmanuel, but I think, again, some of the things he said are actually misleading. One, all over the world, it's not as if every country in the world has adopted or has legalized cannabis. We have to be very clear about that. Even in the United States, it's not the entire country. It's some states in the U.S. that have adopted this. So we have to be very clear on that. And it's still a fact that whether you look at it from the public health perspective, cannabis has quite a lot of medical, consequences. That is something that causes psychosis. That's why you find our young people on the streets falling into the gutters. That's why you find our young people on the streets losing control of their minds. And like I said before, don't forget that I said out of 14.3 million Nigerians abusing illicit substances, 10.6 million of them abuse cannabis, meaning that it's the most commonly abused psychoactive substance in Nigeria. That is one. Let's hold that. Then two, now, when you talk of the security challenges, that the nation is dealing with today, we have established, and even the visuals you played earlier, the comment by the Chief of Defense Staff, he indeed said it here at the National Headquarters of the agency that indeed there is a nexus. He agreed with the Chairman, Chief Executive of the NDLEA between security challenges and substance abuse, because the people who are creating these security problems are people that ordinarily cannot even handle, according to the CDS himself, ordinarily handle a knife. But when they have lost their minds under the control of these illicit substances, then they go ahead and have this fake confidence. They will want to carry a GPMG or carry machine gun and all of those things. So it's something that is contributing seriously to law and order security of our country. I mean, wherever Emmanuel is calling from, they cannot compare the challenges there to what we have here. We are talking about our own peculiar situation. We cannot, again, when he's talking of the economic benefits of cannabis, come to think of it. Now, when you're trying to make, say, for instance, $10 million from cannabis, and you have had to spend $20 billion to build rehab centers, to build, to create medical facilities that will take care of a lot of people that are suffering from a lot of medical issues as a result of the abuse of this particular substance. So, where is the wisdom there? Where is the logic there that you have to make just $10 million from a particular trade from cannabis sales export, and you have had to spend at home more than $20 billion to build rehab centers to
I get you, Mr. Babafemi, but let me jump in quickly. Even as we speak, in a situation where cannabis is not legalized, it's hard to tell if that is the real situation. If you walk on the street and see how people use this substance at liberty without necessarily being challenged. I know we've talked a lot about collaboration between the agency.
You got it.
Just a minute. Between the agency and the EFCC and other security agencies. But have you also considered, partnering with the end users? For instance, the entertainers and those who are considered the superstars who use these things on their music videos, on their social media platforms. They have perhaps more following, than the NDLEA itself. What's being done in that regard? Because you might have to convince people first of your position on cannabis, beyond just going after the plantation and the selling of it.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I'll come back to where I started from by telling you our approach in the agency, that is drug demand reduction. We create a fair balance between our drug demand reduction, where we push advocacy to discourage those who are abusing these substances, to do away with that, to stop that. And on the other hand, the supply reduction, where we go after those distributing or selling or processing all of this, so as to cut access and availability of these things. Now to your question, I can tell you that indeed, under the platform, under our wider advocacy platform, the chairman of the agency itself is very deeply involved in this. He's leading the campaign. We've had to meet quite a lot of these people, whether you talk of the Actors Guild of Nigeria. He's had to meet the leadership of the Actors Guild of Nigeria. And as I'm speaking with you, we are also into having a conversation with the Performing Musicians Association of Nigeria. That's PIMA. We are creating platforms on all fronts, creating conversations on all fronts with all of these people. And you can also see some months ago our engagement with one of the musicians in the country that became controversial. So these are all of the things we're doing to discourage.
Perhaps we should talk about that for a minute. Just hold that thought. Let's take one more call. I didn't get the name. Please go ahead. Oh, I think we lost that call. So you probably were talking about your engagement with Naira Marley. Is that accurate? Was Naira
I'm
Marley,
not trying to limit it to...
Was Naira Marley an ambassador? Was he really made an ambassador of the NDLEA?
Absolutely, there is nothing like that. There was nothing like that. Absolutely, there was nothing like that. We just you see, sometimes some reactions from the public confuse. I mean, we try to confuse ourselves, because here on the one hand, we're asking the agency to engage with these people to discourage them from doing what they do to mislead our young people. And when the agency tries to do the same thing, you now say, oh, why are you associating with these people? They abuse illicit substances. So we have to exactly know what we want. And we can tell you that indeed, the best approach is to actually engage with these people. Engaging with them, meaning that having conversations with them, discouraging them. But as far as appointing somebody as ambassador or no ambassador, there was absolutely nothing like that.
So that was the NDLEA trying to change Naira Marley's mind on the use of cannabis, right? I didn't quite get the picture.
He indeed, yeah, we've been having conversations with him, and he indeed came up to say that indeed he was going to give up on that. And that was the whole essence of what later became controversial, and some people turned it to be a different thing. But then we're glad that you brought this up yourself by saying, why are we not engaging with these people? That was what we simply did. We can't say because in Nigeria today, we have, like I said before, we have, based on the 2018 drug survey result, we have 14.3 million Nigerians who abuse illicit substances. What about the 185 others? So we have to prevent people slipping into that gap. So we have a responsibility to raise advocacy, to discourage those who are, you talk of somebody that has a lot of influence on the young people, and he's saying, okay, I've been telling these people to abuse this thing before, now I don't want to do that no more. And you say we should overlook that? No, let him go and preach the gospel. Let him go and tell them exactly what he wants to tell us. So let him go out there and say it. And so that's all that happened anyway. But then the fact is, there was nothing, and we keep saying it. Anybody that has any contrary evidence can come up with that. There was absolutely nothing like appointing anybody. We don't appoint just anybody to stand as ambassador of the agency. Indeed,
I completely agree with you, Mr. Babafemi. There is nothing wrong in having, those who have influence on social media to help influence others. The only challenge here is that we probably didn't see that happen. We didn't see the musician in question come out to say, stop using cannabis, or I have given up on cannabis, and perhaps that's where the misinformation crept in. But quickly, because of our time...
If you watch his video, if you watch the video he did on at the agency when he came, he did that.
Exactly.
The video is there. Check it
at
out.
The agency.
He did that.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Babafemi, at the agency, but what did he do afterwards? I mean, in his music videos, at this concert.
Yes, but when everybody goes after him, what do you want him to do? We all condemn him. We all condemn him. I mean, we out there, Nigerians condemn him and say, oh, no, we don't believe him. He can never change. Is it your change? As people will say out there, it's not your change, it's his change.
It's all right. Interesting development. So NDLEA has been in operation for how long now? About more than 3 decades, if I'm right. And I believe that
absolutely,
the establishment was aimed at exterminating illicit drug trafficking and its consumption in Nigeria. Quickly before we go, how well would you say that we are doing in that regard over that long stretch of time? Are things actually getting better or worse?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said again, where we were before, that's not where we are today. I can tell you that in the last couple of months, we've had more than 42,000 arrests of offenders, and with more than 7,500 tons of assorted illicit drugs mopped up from all across everywhere, and more than 8,000 offenders convicted. And as I speak with you, we have more than 12,000 cases ongoing in the law court. So, but then this is not all about it. The key thing is for us, because this is a law own grace. And we all have to be very determined. We all have to get involved in this. This is not just about General Mao. It's not about President Tinubu. It's not about the NDLEA. It's not about the federal government or the state government. Everybody, wherever you are, wherever you may be, you have an area or sphere of influence. You need to wield that influence. We need to talk to our kids from the homes. That's where the intentional parenting comes in. In schools, we need to get the teachers, the proprietors to ensure that drug education is taken seriously at the school level. And that's why we go to all of these places, including our churches, our mosques, to talk to them, to address them. We get them to buy in and make sure that this is part of the regular sermons in churches on Sundays, in mosques on Fridays. You see, if you watch the 3-5 minutes video we produce every week, which we share on our social media handles, we show all of these clips of officers and men going to churches, going to marketplaces, going to workplaces, and all of these places to ensure that we talk to people about the dangers of abusing illicit substances. So it's something that we all have to get involved. It's not about the level of government.
That's right. That's our time. Mr. Femi, Baba Femi, spokesman of the NDLEA. Thank you so much for talking to us. You agree with me that the agency still has a lot more to do, particularly in convincing young people from smoking Igbo. You know, someone called all the way from Australia to even to convince you otherwise. But we wish you the best in the coming days and also the coming year. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program.
Thank you, Nifemi. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's the program today. Thanks for being a part of it. I'm Nifemi Oguntoye.